Hi, and welcome back to Consordini.com. I'm Justin Leopard with another cello lesson for you guys today, and today I want to talk about a couple of related bow techniques that are very, very useful. You've heard it whenever you've heard Vivaldi, Four Seasons. You've heard it whenever you've heard Lindsey Stirling do something or two cellos do something. If you watched our Thunderstruck video, you actually need this technique in order to play rapidly, and it's the technique of bouncing the bow. If you do it where you actually physically bounce the hairs off the string, it's called spiccato. Very useful. If you weren't to leave the string, you don't quite get as ringing and joyous of a sound as you get when you actually bounce the bow. The other technique that's related is called sautier. Sautier is basically when you do leave the bow on the string, but you play fast enough that the stick bounces and still gives you that bouncing motion. So there, the bow is still bouncing, and that's how you're getting the precision of the notes, whereas if it would be quite a bit of a mess otherwise. So in this video, we're just going to go over how you play each of these. So first of all, when you're playing staccato, which basically just means short, you're kind of coming in to the string at an angle. You're kind of making a little smiley face with the bow, a little scoop with the bow. You don't want to just hit the string, without moving it, then you're just going to get stick and you're not going to have any sound. So you are moving the bow just a little bit. In slow motion, it maybe is more like a V, where you get an inch or so on the bow and then you lift off. But you're making this smiley face gesture. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow the string to continue vibrating even after you've played the note, and yet it'll still be short. So you get this short, ringing sound. The basic approach to the bow hold is the same as anything else. When you're starting in the string, we've talked about actually getting deep inside the string before moving the bow, and you still need that sensibility about being in the string in order to do this stroke. But you don't also want to be too heavy, because then you get all this other noise, and that's not so pleasant. So there's a nice point where you can feel the balance of it. And you might notice that I'm doing this not quite at the lowest point of the arc. If I release my hand, you'll realize that's not actually the balance point. The balance point of the bow is not in the center because the frog is so much heavier. But the balance point of the bow, you can see where I'm balancing the bow, roughly around there, and I find a little bit closer to the frog, but roughly around there is going to be the sweet spot where the bow is going to bounce for you. So the way I would suggest practicing this is to maybe go over the motion slowly, just to kind of make sure that you understand the basic core sound you're going for and the kind of motion. But then I just want you to try to get the smiley face and listen for the sound and feel when you start to get it naturally. This is the easier stroke. And once you start getting a hang of staccato, you're going to start kind of getting a sense of what it means to bounce the bow. Sautier, on the other hand, may be a little bit harder, but it's going to allow you to play fast and short. So one thing that you can practice, and this is actually going to improve your playing. 5 minutes of practicing this will improve far more than just sautier. But hold the bow with your normal bow position, but not on the string. And I just want you to push your fingers all the way out and out in the direction of the angle of the hand that's pronated, and then bring it back up. And if you're still getting accustomed to your bow hold, this might be a little bit difficult, but it's the flexibility of those fingers, the ability of the fingers to be able to kind of jut out, that's going to give you a lot of this ability to bounce the stick even though the hairs aren't moving. What you're going to want to do when you start actually trying to play the notes is start by just going short and back and forth. And as you do so, try to engage your fingers with it so that it's your fingers, not just the motion of the hand, that's really guiding these short notes. And it's going to be paying attention to the motion of the fingers that's going to be valuable as we try to speed this up. So at this tempo, the way that I'm playing doesn't sound maybe that interesting, certainly doesn't sound like the more ringy staccato that we had just had. But as you try to speed it up, what's going to happen is that as your fingers are trying to control the bow, which is flexible, will want to move. And that's what's going to cause the bouncing, is the little bit of construction that it has with its own structure. And I'll zoom in so that you can really see that the stick is bouncing, but the bow's not leaving the string. And if you'll watch, on my right hand, my fingers are kind of going crazy, shooting the bow out. And one thing that's very important when you're practicing a new technique, because sometimes when you're just practicing the technique in isolation, like I just was, you get something that you wonder, is this correct? You know, is this interesting? Is this good? Am I doing it right? And so I think understand that when you're practicing a technique in isolation, it may not be intrinsically musical. And it's sometimes important to just practice the things that I just literally technically told you to practice about the fingers and about the short bow. But then try to put it in a musical context if you can, which is the reason why I played the scale, which in my opinion sounded better. It sounded more musical because I had an intention behind it. So that's sautier. Staccato, bouncing the bow. Where the hairs do actually come off the string, and sautier, playing faster, where the fingers jut this string off, and it's just the stick that bounces. And I play that a little bit on the other side of the balance point. So I tend to play staccato a little bit closer to the frog relative to the balance point. I tend to play sautier a little bit closer to the tip relative to the balance point. So I hope that this video was helpful for you being able to play some of these faster things. Sautier is a bit of a tricky technique to get. It's really nice when you're practicing it with something like Thunderstruck, some repertoire that you have that can make it fun, that can make it in a musical context. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. In fact, I hope you enjoy watching all of our videos. We have lots of cello lesson videos, and we want you to get better at cello, and we want to hear from you how everything's going and if you have any questions. Once again, I'm Justin Leopard with Consordini.com. We'll see you guys next time.